Good afternoon and welcome to another in our Saturday Sports Special. I am Michael Bascom, your host, and this afternoon we'll be talking football. Yes, it has been quite a while. We have not, get into football. It has been for some people all cricket over the past few, I will say the past few weeks. Obviously, football to some extent dominated the program, and that I should say cricket dominated the program, and for reason why, West Indies playing at home, hosted Sri Lanka, the test drawn, that's the second and final test drawn series also drawn, but West Indies won the T20 International and the One Day International. Congratulations to Team West Indies. But our focus this weekend is on football, and we'll be talking football for the next 2 hours. Well, our main guest, I should say, is someone who, for some reason or the other, started off in another sport. Track and field, to be exact. A long-distance runner, national athlete, represented Grenada throughout the region. And long distance, as I said. But somehow, about a decade ago, got into officiating. And to this day, within the last 2 years or so, is going on to his third year as a FIFA referee. We are speaking about one by the name of Reon Radix. Certainly, if you Google the name Reon Radix, you'll see a lot about his track and field career, his running ability, his domination in the long distance running in Grenada for many years. No doubt, but of recent, Reon has shifted his focus and he's now Grenada's only FIFA-approved referee. And he has been, climbing the stairs, yes. So our main guest on the program, as I said, will be Reon Radix. Hopefully we'll be joined by the president of the Grenada Football Association, Mr. Cheney Joseph, as well as the coach of Grenada's senior men's national team, Mr. Michael Findlay. We'll be talking about the Grenada's recent exploits in the Qatar 2022 FIFA World Cup qualifiers, played against El Salvador in San Salvador, and in St. George's at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium against the U.S. Virgin Islands. And the tournament continues. That's a qualifying tournament, continues in June. That's, I think, on June 4th. So we'll be speaking to the coach as well as the president of Grenada Football Association about other initiatives being undertaken by the GFA. But let me use this opportunity to welcome to our program this afternoon, Mr. Reon Radix. Good afternoon to you, Reon.
Good afternoon, Michael. Good afternoon, listeners. Good afternoon, everyone.
Okay, it's nice hearing you, and no doubt we'll be speaking quite a bit. Reon, tell us, first of all, how you got involved in a sport as football, knowing for a fact that, you started off running in track and field.
Well, it's a fascinating story. Actually, cricket, Michael, was my first love. In primary school, my track and field prowess was identified, and I was juggling between these two sports, cricket and track and field. But I excelled at track and field. But at the age of 11 or so, I was introduced to football. My uncle's wife, who is the sister of Roderick Griffith and Cyrus Griffith, and they're from River Road, she brought me to Rodo's Saturday program, and that's when I became involved in football, and that's when the love for football really started. So I used to play football as well, but my main sport, as you said, was that of track and field, and played football at secondary school level for the GBSS on the 15 and senior team, on the fringes. So I was involved in the sport. I knew the sport. I loved the sport as well. A big fan of the sport, you know. So while I probably was not, excelling a lot in the sport of football, I was, largely involved in it. Um, how did I get involved in refereeing? I think in 2009, I joined the Vincent Sports and Cultural Club, and we organized, a village football competition. And as a member of the club, you expected to officiate those games, So that's when I started refereeing. And I remember Miss Vida Bruno Victor. She was a member of the club at the time, and one night in our meeting, our usual club meeting, weekly club meeting, she said that the GFA will be hosting well, I wouldn't say a workshop, but a course, organized by the the regular FIFA rap course, as they called it at that time. Um, and I was selected by the club to participate in that course. I think that was in 2010, and from then, I became actively involved in officiating and refereeing. So that's the story in a nutshell.
But it wasn't an easy ride for Reon getting involved in local officiating, and knowing for a fact how challenging it is to officiate in local matches. It wasn't an easy ride for Reon.
No. It was definitely challenging. Learning as you go is often, difficult, and the pressures of officiating not only locally, but we know the pressures of officiating internationally and regionally as well. It's a very, demanding and difficult task or job to be an official. So, had to be very resilient and, persevere a lot. But I had a passion for it, and I think with the passion, I was able to, you know, advance and develop.
Yeah, well, I assume in that certainly your involvement and to some extent shift, because you were dominating long distance running at the time. So it still behoves why at such a time when you were dominating a sport that you chose to move from what we'll call the track, which is athletics, to something that was new and probably more challenging for you.
Yeah, the transition was a bit difficult because I had track and field at my heart. I have been running for a number of years, and as you mentioned, doing quite well regionally and locally. Um, but I think it all changed. I think in 2016 is when I really made a breakthrough, and things changed. I wonder if you remember the opening of the National Stadium. I at that occasion, the GFA had the finals of, I think was the Super League they call it at the time. Paradise played Hurricane, and I was selected to do that game. And I think things changed then. I did the game. For me, one of the most memorable moment in my refereeing career, that day when the stadium was open, the largest crowd I've seen at a game. And things change from there. Opportunities, in the refereeing field came. After that, I went to the CONCACAF U15 Championship, and later on, I was selected to be a part of the program of refereeing excellence, the first generation. Did reasonably well there in 2017, and was given my FIFA badge in 2018. So things really progressed quickly in the refereeing, and I thought that, you know, to juggle two things will be very difficult because I don't want to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. So I had to make, a decision as to should I continue with track or should I move, into refereeing. And I decided to go into refereeing, So it was one of the other. I myself, when I'm involved in something, I want to ensure that I put my all and my best foot forward. And I don't think I could have done that juggling the two of them. So sadly one had to go, and it was track and field.
And as you said, sadly,
Yeah.
Yeah, because I recall traveling with you. I think it was either Martinique or Guadeloupe. You remember Guadeloupe. Some years ago, we went to this meet. It was the whatever it is.
It was Grozile. It was a 10K.
Right, a 10K. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And it was all right. So it's Guadeloupe, right? I always juggling between whether it was Martinique and Guadeloupe.
Yeah, it was Guadeloupe.
Guadeloupe, yeah, participated in that. It was I always recall it was, I think it was October. It was that month.
Yeah, usually in October. Yeah,
correct. Right, in month of October. Kenisha Pascal, I think, was also a member of that team.
Yeah.
And so some good times we had, back then.
Yeah.
But Reon, as you indicated, it certainly wasn't an easy transition. So what it was like in terms of the experience, probably if you can think about high points, low points in officiating at home. Let's look at it at home first. Officiating at home.
Well, at home, I mentioned from 2010 I did my first course, but it took at least 2 years before I really, got to officiate. And in fact, I started off as an assistant referee for quite a number of years, working mainly with Fimba Charles, that is the prison officer, Ernest Richardson, Devon Roberts, but particularly with Fimba, I would work as an assistant referee. I was his assistant referee, and in fact, the number 2. So I was learning the trade on the line, which I'm grateful for to this day, because I felt that it really helped me, to transition onto the field, smoothly. So I always, I'm grateful for the opportunity that I was given to officiate on the lines. And then it was really nerve-wracking getting into the middle. I started refereeing in the middle, more in the St. David League, and in the GFA second division. And it was a rude awakening. At that moment, I decided, it hit me, and I was like, yo, what are you doing? Why didn't you stay? Why didn't you stay in track of the field? Because the pressure of the fans, and the things that was said, it's very difficult as a young and upcoming referee to withstand, all those things. But as I said before, the passion and the love kept me going. And I remember having a good season, second division, and then I got my first Premier League game. I cannot forget my first Premier League game. That is Hurricanes against Fontenoy. That was in Queen's Park, and it was a nice game to break through with. Got some good praise and commendation, but that was one of the high points. But there were several low points, and I would call learning curves along the way. I remember a particular game, Queen's Park Rangers and Paradise in Queen's Park. Always a daunting venue to officiate in. It really got to me. And I always remember this game as a low point, but one that I learned from. All right. So it wasn't a it's a roller it was a roller coaster journey. It's still roller coaster. It's ups and down. In the field of refereeing, you're as good as are good as your last game. I always say, you know, you might the last game you did you are up here, and the next game you can be down there. So it's really a roller coaster journey as a referee. But the important thing is to learn as you go along. Is the most important thing.
But do you think you have gained some level of respect among the locals? Because you said it has been rough, it has been challenging, and obviously we know people are very passionate about their teams locally. But do you think, as you have grown into the role of officiating, starting with as an assistant, now to a full-time, well, I say full-time, full referee, you think you have gained that level of respect among players and spectators alike?
I would want to believe to some extent that I have, but fans, and fans will always see the game, from a biased perspective or their eyes. They always root for the team, so they're never, in favor when things don't go, in the way they would like it to go for the team. So, in refereeing, I always say you're in a public field, you're open to criticism, and in the sport of football, the fans, their voice, their opinion, and their criticism, it's part of football, so I've learned to accept, that you will be criticized, and I believe to some extent I've gained respect, but as I said, every game is different. You have fans who said, they really like how you officiate, and then the same fans after a game where the team lose, you're the worst referee. So it's all conditional with fans. If things go well for them, then you're good. If it goes bad, then you're the worst referee. But as I said, that's part and parcel of football, and we can tolerate that. What I can't tolerate is, when it moves away from passion and it moves to abuse and disrespect, and to the point where referees, are, assaulted and so forth.
All right. Well, no doubt, the next person I want to introduce is one who may have had run-ins with referees. I'm not sure if he may have abused, but as a former footballer and playing during his playing days, he may have had some some in and outs with referees, with officials during that time. No other than the president of the Grenada Football Association, Mr. Cheney Joseph. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Joseph.
Hi, good afternoon, Michael. Good afternoon, Reon.
Good afternoon, Prezi.
And good afternoon to all your viewers and listeners.
Okay, well, as I indicated, that Mr. Joseph will join us, but he came in at the right time, I would say, where Reon has been speaking specifically about officiating and the challenges one face for officials. I know you, as president of the Grenada Football Association, has had some concerns, over the past few years about the conditions under which referees operate, albeit might have been ironed out by now, some of them. Always a challenge, no doubt. And sometimes the abuse of match officials. At one point in time, we saw so many folks getting involved in refereeing, both men and women, but always the challenge of, the abuse they face, when we know that what they are doing is almost voluntary, Cheney. From the Grenada Football Association point of view, what you think can be done or have been done to address these problems, some of these problems, I should say?
Mike, I'll start off by saying that I think the first thing we want to do is give recognition to your guest. He's by far one of the best the Caribbean has produced in the last decade. He's been doing a great job. He's been identified as potentially one that is for the future. I won't be surprised if he makes it to a World Cup soon. And though I know he's level-headed and he's always been humble, I just want to encourage him to continue his quality work that he's been doing on the field. In fact, I saw him just recently in a game. I think it was Honduras and the United States or something like that. Just recently, I think last week. And I was trying to be critical of him, but I couldn't find reasons to do so. So I think we in Grenada should be proud of what Reon has been doing. I think he's also an inspiration to many others who would one day want to pursue, I call it a profession as a match official. Moving away from that though, I want to say the biggest challenge we have, or challenges we have in football in places like Grenada is as follows. One, a lack of knowledge of the current laws of the game by footballers, by coaches, by fans. And as a result of those persons, and I'm not saying all, let me be clear on that. As a result of the lack of knowledge, you find persons who are probably familiar with laws of the game as it was 10 years ago, come on the sideline and try to interpret the laws of the game, and they sometimes don't like it. Another reason for that is, and I continue to say it, in order for us to professionalize the sport and for our match officials to get respect, I think we need to start playing the game just like it is played internationally, in an enclosed venue where fans do not have easy access to the sideline, and where the photo official or the referee or even his assistants are not tormented throughout the game by a fan with a bottle in his hand, drinking a beer or two, those kinds of things. And the last one, but by no means least, if and when we can find a way to do more to emulate the good work that some of these match officials are doing, I think out of that, respect will come for many of our match officials. I don't want to go back in the past, but we have seen some very unsavory moments recently in football. In fact, I think 1 or 2 or 3 players have been banned for more than a year. Another few were given 6 months ban. And I will tell you that I believe the disciplinary committee will be even more firm going forward on players and officials and even spectators relating to respecting these match officials. What we can say though is that we continue to offer as much training for them. I know Mr. Radix will speak more about the training they get because he's normally part of it. And we continue to try and highlight some of the others who have potential within Grenada that we believe can move to the next level in a very short while. So I hope I did try to put some kind of information relevant to your question and the match officials and the respect that we hope that they will continue to receive in the future.
Okay, that's very, very enlightening indeed, Mr. Joseph. And certainly, I think from the point of the Grenada Football Association, you will also probably want to encourage others to get involved. I know there has been some level of recruitment. You have a committee in place as well to deal specifically with the refereeing. But for those who listening and have an interest, just like how Reon got involved about 10 years ago, how can one get involved, Cheney?
Well, just look at Reon lifestyle as it's improving. No, on a more serious note, and I don't want people to look at the glitz and the glamour, or, you know, as Reon is experiencing now, being able to jump a plane as often as he's available. Because I'll tell you, CONCACAF FIFA will only employ the best. And the fact that Reon has been contacted so often, in fact, I know on some instances he's had to turn down games because of the frequency of him having to go out of the country. What I will say to would-be match officials, it's a sport, I call it a sport within a profession, something that can take you and your livelihood to the next level if you take it serious, if you emulate the best, and if you aspire to achieve greatness. If you remain frequent with the laws and you interpret it properly, but most importantly, you cannot come to watch these games, or sorry, to officiate in those games, and you're not fit. I think one of the advantage Reon in particular has, or over a lot of others, I mean, we have a few good fit referees here, but I think his willingness to remain in top shape is important. The other thing I will say regarding recruitment of match officials, we have been pursuing, especially amongst persons in the public sector, like teachers, custom officers, police officers, persons in the private sector also. We want persons who can interpret the laws of the game, who can learn the laws of the game, and who can be impartial at all times to come on board to referee. We are on a drive right now, and I have indicated to Reon in particular, we need to see at least 4 more Reons. So we don't want that to happen when he's finished with his career, but we want it to happen that there's always one following in his footsteps, not too far behind.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Cheney, because I know from previous interviews we did, you always bear the fact of having referees officiating at the highest level, but are you still concerned that there isn't more, and as you just indicated, encouraging more, but concerned that there isn't more of the Reon Radixes available? Once upon a time, we had probably a 2 or 3, in the among cadre of FIFA officials, whether referee or assistant referee. Now we just have one. What will be the push from the GFA to ensure that we get others at that level?
Well, Mike, to be honest, in my own personal view, just having observed our local football, I think we have about 4 or 5 others who are not far off. I don't want to forget name. We have Clinton Daniel, who is getting there. He just needs to get more in shape. He's been FIFA AR for a while, I think 2 or 3 years. We have persons like Jade Paul. I think Reon brother also is a good prospect. In fact, very good. We have Junior Cyrus, who in my opinion is another good match official. And young Bido, I forgot his name. I think all these kids, or these persons, sorry, are not too far off from being where hopefully one day, where Reon is now, or where he started when in 2018 he got his first badge. But I hope I'm not in any way creating a problem for anyone, but I believe we have about 4 or 5 persons whom we need to highlight some more, because one of the things I think we can do to help that, Michael, and I'm hoping that we'll do it, is COVID has come as an opportunity. So with more games playing in enclosed venues, hopefully GFA can use the opportunity to record some of these games. And maybe one of the things we can do, apart from just reviewing it, is to showcase these players, these match officials to the CONCACAF and FIFA persons who sometimes influence the decision as to who next move forward.
Any females among those identified thus far, Cheney?
We have 1 or 2 that's getting there. But they have to again remain committed to it. They cannot see it just as a walk in the park or just for the mere purpose of officiating in GFA games. They have to want to be at the next level. I will honestly say to you though, I think we had 2, and I don't know why both of them faded away. I personally believe Raquel Hood and Miss what's her name? I think Wellington.
Police officer.
Yeah, I think 2 of them were destined for greatness, but for some reason, it's a problem we have in Grenada. We have a lot of people who are very impatient, but I think these 2 were definitely in. But I've seen some others that show signs I don't recall the name right now, but I've seen one or two who are showing signs, and I believe we'll have in a short while.
Okay. Reon, the whole issue of the challenges you face, before the president came on, you spoke about that locally. But what it has been like officiating away from home now?
Well, officiating away from home, and I don't hope I mash any con, by saying this, but on the regional level, on the CONCACAF level, you operate in a more professional environment. So the challenges are a lot different than that of home. So at the CONCACAF level, with fans and abuse from fans, it's not as prevalent as it is back home. So that's one, and the whole environment, it's a bit different, in terms of how things are, are done or conducted, and how the match, the operations and so surrounding the match, So that's the difference in terms of the challenges you face. I mean, the expectations at the CONCACAF level, it's a lot, higher, because you expect to always bring your A game when you're at the CONCACAF level. Although I must say also that even when I'm officiating locally, I always try to bring my A game, which helps, when I transition onto the CONCACAF level, regional level. So the both offer, different challenges. Home, the fans are closer to you, they're a lot more vocal, when you're at the CONCACAF level, you don't have that problem. But expectations are a lot different as well.
Okay, that's quite interesting enough. And as we indicated, some of the photos of you while officiating, I am assuming that you can probably tell us exactly where was that.
That, I believe, let me see. I think that is in Jamaica. Yeah, I think that is in Jamaica. September 2019, I think, was quarterfinals of the CONCACAF League. I think it's Waterhouse of Jamaica and Matagua of Honduras.
So you have been, as the president indicated, you have been moving about, and as we see, that's the Scotia Bank CONCACAF Champions League, something we were speaking about early on.
Yeah, that was the return of the Champions League. They did a bubble to complete the competition, and that was I think a quarterfinals between Tigres and can't remember the team, but it's Tigres from Mexico. That was one of the teams in yellow there.
Okay, and how it is like? I mean, I know you spoke about the challenges, you face, and you started off at home, but what it is like prior to COVID, because now everything is almost in a bubble. What it was like prior to COVID, officiated in matches, especially in places like Central America. And I'm talking about where the passion for football is so endearing.
Yeah, it was amazing. The presence of the fan, and to officiate at the stadium, the atmosphere, electrifying and breathtaking. That is something I enjoy witnessing. Prior to COVID, I look forward to going to those stadiums. I remember my first experience in Costa Rica at Club Saprissa, and when I walked out and the atmosphere, I got chills, literally got chills. So just experiencing the atmosphere at the stadium, the passion exuding from the fans, it's something to behold. And prior to COVID, that was enjoyable. It got you going. But of course, with the pandemic and our situation now, that's a lot different. You don't experience that because fans were not allowed in the stadium. But most recently in the Olympic qualifiers, a number of fans were allowed to be at the stadium, and it was nice again to have the fans in the stadium, because the fans really add the atmosphere to the football games.
Okay, we're talking about fans. Let me just invite now the coach of Grenada's senior men's national team, Mr. Michael Findlay. The name Mike Findlay, Cheney, no doubt, is one that normally associated with cricket. I hope you told Mike about that, But Mike Findlay is the coach of Grenada's senior men's national team. And, Grenada started its quest in the Qatar 2022 FIFA World Cup qualifiers. And Mike had the national team for the game against El Salvador, and then the U.S. Virgin Islands, but still some way to go, and certainly an opportunity for Grenada to advance. So let's invite Mike. Mike is joining us all the way from Vancouver in Canada. Mike, good afternoon to you.
Good morning to all. How are you, Michael?
Okay, well, it's morning your time. Just remember, everything is fine, Mike.
Yeah. Good day, Mr. Radix. Good to see you. Mr. President, nice to see you. And I can tell you that the president and I had a long conversation about cricket before I joined Grenada. So he said, "Don't worry. If they start yelling at you, it's got nothing to do with football. It's got to do with cricket." So,
all right. Thank you very much, Mike. No doubt. But as we are indicating, the process for Grenada, started. And as always, sometimes very challenging indeed. And we recognize that, sometimes the challenges are more off the field than on the field. And it was a bit challenging for you with your first time with Grenada in an international tournament. And there you got to El Salvador, and there you had the challenges of facing the prospect of not having, most of the players of your team, so many things you had to deal with just hours before, your kickoff, I should say. Mike, let's look at, probably before we go on to the actual preparation, that experience in El Salvador, a week or so ago, how it was. I mean, was it something that shaking the players? What the experience was like?
Well, no, it was, first and foremost, the challenge exists for everybody in CONCACAF at this moment in time due to a number of different issues. And as my colleague there, Mr. Radix, says, you have to be prepared to deal with a number of different challenges that are put in front of you. And yes, we did experience some extreme challenges that would be considered off the field. But at the same time, I have to say we have to commend both our internal staff of the men's national team and also the GFA and our staff in the GFA office, who did everything humanly possible to assist the process. And the reality is you have to deal with the cards that are dealt you, and that's what we had to do. And I thought we handled it as best we could. And as always, I think the group showed great strength in addressing these issues, and the team itself were fully informed on an ongoing basis. They knew exactly where we were at. We're a very inclusive and transparent group, and we set ourselves to face those challenges, which we did. Obviously, we would have liked to have seen a result in El Salvador in that process, but it wasn't to be on the day. But in terms of performance and how the team and the staff conducting themselves, I couldn't have been happier, and I think Grenada would be proud of how they went through this process.
Yeah, and I taking it to the fact that based on the circumstances, that you're very much satisfied with the performance of the national team, and even in the context of the having the players available when you have the players available, and all that is associated with getting the players in one unit at that time, and then looking at the performance, you thought that it was tremendous for the team.
Yeah, I mean, again, the challenges that were there, international football comes with an enormous amount of working pieces. And part of those pieces in the global game today is the fact that a large amount of your players don't exist within your domestic game. And so in doing so, you have to work within the FIFA calendar, and post-COVID, that calendar has been squeezed. And so things are put in front of you that you have to be quite nimble and quite quick to make some decisions. We were disappointed, even without COVID having any effect on us. We were more disappointed the fact that for the El Salvador game, 2 of our players were unavailable, not due to COVID issues, but due to injuries and personal circumstances. And that was a blow to us, there's no doubt. But I think we rebounded well and planned well. In terms of what it provided us, it also provided us with an opportunity. And I've made it very clear from the beginning in the discussions with the president and the Exco that this is a marathon. It's not a sprint for Grenadian football. And so the reality was we got an opportunity to see some players and assess some players' competencies and realities due to the lack of ability to get certain players into the squad during this first round window. So those are challenges that all coaches at the international level have to deal with, and our staff felt strongly that we're going to use this as an opportunity and not use it as a negative.
Right. Well said, Mr. Findlay, and I'm assuming that you have some time now between now and the next round to do some reassessing. And obviously, as you indicated, that seeing as you can put these, the results behind your back, one loss, one victory. But now looking forward, and as you indicated, every round or every game comes with its own challenges. What sorts of preparation now you have in mind in ensuring that Grenada build on the result of the last game, and ensure that you can move out of the move out of this round and move into the next round in a better position?
Yeah, I mean, we had a plan that we've had in place since my appointment, and we've been working through this plan. That plan included a deep look at the domestically based players within Grenada, which then gave us an opportunity to move into a smaller group prior to adding our foreign-based players finally into the group for at least part of the window. As it relates moving forward, first and foremost, the good news is that we are very much in the mix. As I've always said, games must be played and games must be finished, and games are played by the same 11 for every team. So we go forward into match day 3 and match day 4 very much alive, and with the possibility of moving on to the second round playoff, which is exciting, and we're glad we did it. In terms of preparation beforehand, yes, you're correct, Michael, that a lot of what goes on now will be reassessment and evaluation of both of the matches' performances. We have a strategy in place in terms of our overall evaluation of each of the players and what their performance standard was and what we were looking for each of them. It also gives us an opportunity to have the players return to club football, both in a foreign-based environment, but also in the domestic-based environment, because we're very hopeful and excited about the fact of going back to play in Grenada with the Premier League. And our goal has always been to engage with the Premier League teams with our domestically based players, which that will be part of the process between now and the next window. But lots of work to do, both from a player evaluation, team evaluation, but also staff evaluations and debriefing. So we're in the best possible position to move forward. And also we have on the side of the table, we've got Gold Cup preparations that we're already undertaking.
Okay. Right. Well, Cheney, I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, but from your point of view, Mr. Joseph, and not just your point of view, from the Grenada Football Association point of view, how do you ensure that Mike and his staff and the team, they get the resources needed, they get the assistance needed and the support needed from the FA to meet their objectives?
First of all, I want to say congratulations to the team on their victory last Tuesday. It was a much needed 3 points. Brought us closer to the realization that there is still a chance for us. If we can maximize on the points in the remaining 2 games, there is a chance that we can emerge top of the group, hopefully. With maybe one other result running opposite to what El Salvador or any of the other teams would like. Having said that, we have been from day one, and I think Mike has been up as the coach now for maybe about 80 days. From day one, we've offered him the support needed. He has agreed to work with the local staff. Normally, most international coaches bring the backroom staff with them. He has agreed to work with our local coaches so that they themselves can bring the local knowledge as well as they can gain some knowledge from him. I think we also have a technical director who has been working very closely with the coach. And from what I've heard from Mike and others, the support from the secretariat, the support from the technical director and others has been exemplary so far. I anticipate it will be the same going through onto the next 2 games in June, as well as in preparation for World Cup and the Nations League and everything else that the National Senior Men's Program and all the other programs will be going through while he is involved with our football. I just want to say that there's a harsh reality. Our expectations are always high. I know we are a passionate group of people, but then there's something called reality. And the harsh reality is that the amount of, let's call it domestic players we have, or locally based players we have playing at amateur football will be a challenge for him and the GFA in terms of having these players up to that next level. So while we want positive results all the time, we must also be realistic with regards to our current scenario. Hence the reason why I believe we must try to work closer with the government of Grenada to try and get these players that hopefully Mike and others will identify and have these players training at the highest level, even though they are still amateurs. I think that's the only how we're going to get to the next level. I'm not here to compare us with anyone, but the reality is the successful teams of CONCACAF and the successful teams of the world are playing with primarily 98% or if not 100% professional footballers. And the environment in a professional setting is a lot different to what we experience here locally.
Mike, is there anything you need to add to that, to what the president indicated?
No, I think the president is correct, and I can say firsthand that the support that I've been given from day one that I arrived, and actually prior to arriving, because the president and I had and the EXCO have obviously had conversations prior to my arrival about what was required, and I think he's absolutely correct. The support has been 100% behind the team, the players, the staff, and what we need. This is a process. And as the president pointed out there, it will continue into the next rounds. But the reality check that he mentions is true and spot on. And what part of our job is to try and raise the standard of domestic football to the point where at least players are getting an opportunity to train on an ongoing basis at the highest level possible. As it relates to the nationalization and identification of players playing globally, That is the reality of international football. And what we need to do is we need to balance that process so we can find a middle ground, because that process also helps the domestic game. There's nothing better than, for example, we gave debuts to 2 young players against U.S. Virgin Islands, and both of those players need somebody to aspire to. They need somebody to emulate, and no better than players that are playing in professional football around the globe. So that drives their interest, drives their demands, and their ability to play at that next level. So it's a dance, so to speak, and we're trying to find the best way to make that dance be successful and attractive for our fans.
Yeah. Well said there. And not leaving Reon out of that dance, Reon. There is something I want to, yeah, I found it now. Yeah, Reon. Let me just play it and then we'll come back to it, Reon. Reon, you don't really feel, I know, I think it's Champions League, you know, CONCACAF, I see the CL logo. You don't feel intimidated at times, Reon, having to officiate at these, what they call top class matches, especially in Central America? I still ask you to the point of Central America because I know the passion these folks have, the large stadium, you know, lots of fans. Well, in this case, we don't have that many fans, but the whole feeling of being intimidated sometimes, especially carrying the whistle.
It's one quality of a referee, yeah, top referee that you shouldn't possess. Intimidation. Oh no, actually, I think the days where I felt intimidated are long gone. I don't wanna blow my own horn here, but I think I've overcome, you know, intimidation by players or by fans. But no, it's no longer there. I think as you grow and as you develop, as you get more experience, I think that goes out the window, and you're a bit more confident and, you know, assured in your ability, so you are less intimidated by the fans or by the players. I must say, though, one of my experiences, you know, in South America, I think a couple of years ago, when I just came onto the scene as we were on intimidation, I remember Saprissa, the same club in the video. You know, I was photo official on that game, and they actually won the game, and they won. It was a Champions League game against Tigres, but the fans were still having a go at me, and I was, you know, as the photo official, hey, you ref, you this, you that, you know. So it was a bit, you know, funny that, you know, that they won and were still having a go at the referee. So it can be intimidating when you just start. But as you gain the confidence and the belief in your ability, then, you know, that is out the window.
You're talking about Tigres in Mexico?
Yeah, Tigres. I think they were in the World Club Finals, Club Championship Finals, FIFA World Club Championship Finals. Yes, that game was Saprissa of Costa Rica and Tigres of Mexico. Yeah.
That could be you know, very challenging. Let's get some comments from earlier. Kwame Hippolyte said, Trackblazer, Reon Radix, keep up the hard work. Your hard work every day in Lazzy pays off. There's another one, always dedicated to whatever he puts his mind to. And respect to Reon Radix. That's from earlier comments. Certainly your fans are well locked in, Reon. You're doing a good job, Reon, from Vol Playing Field to the world. Vincent Sports and Culture Club is proud of you. Keep up the good work. Riffle George saying, greetings, guys. Locked in as usual. And Alan James, VP, I'm happy to be part of this team. Great job, guys. Share the good news. And Lincoln Deputy, bring Bumpy Griffith out of retirement and sell him to referee those big games in Central America. Cherry, I don't think Bumpy Griffith will be able to make that, boy. I know Toro is just pulling your legs, eh? Definitely.
Mike, just quickly, one of the things I am thinking of is the difficulty it could be for persons like Reon who are in small country like ours to make that transition between what our top football is and then what the international football is in terms of everything that's expected. Hence the reason why I welcome Mike. And when I say Mike now, I'm talking about Mike Findlay, the soccer coach, not the cricketer.
Or not Michael yet.
You haven't seen the president hasn't seen me bowl yet, so that's what I know.
Yeah, but hence the reason why I look forward to our Premier League at least lifting its standard, not just on the field of play, but even in game day operation, because these things help people like Reon and those whom I spoke of earlier on to maintain a standard. I always use reference to playing steel pan or performance as an artist. If you don't practice consistently, your game will drop. And hence the reason why if you want to maintain a high level, you should be also getting the chance to officiate in matches that are of a similar standard or even higher.
Yeah, good point, Cheney, and a good segue also to bring you to the point, because I think Mike makes some reference to that to an extent, well, not fully, because he's just getting himself involved in local football. But how do you ensure that we lift, and from the Grenada Football Association point of view, lift the standard of football? Kudos to the GFA, no doubt, for ensuring that fans can continue to see football in this COVID times. The live streaming, you know, all these engagements, Cheney, certainly has been, you know, groundbreaking. You know, obviously cricket and others have followed since then, but kudos to the GFA for making that sort of investment and ensuring that football is live streaming. But how do you, apart from that, ensure that we also with complement that with improving the standard of football?
Well, you know, the president mentions, he used a word there, it's a very, very important word. And Mr. Radix there will agree. It's all about standards. And if we're going to see an improvement of the culture of football, from an economics point of view and a development point of view, because what I've seen in my times in Grenada, since I've been there, is the culture of football is strong in terms of its participatory and interest and love, and they love the ball and they love to compete. And you know, I when I drive around and I see, you know, these afternoon sweats going on, and I'm like, okay, there is an intimate relationship with the game. So now, how do you lift that intimacy to become more standardized? And that only happens when you raise your standards around the game completely, which means coaching, which means officiating, which means off-field, as the president referenced, off-field game day action, medical support, right? Which then drives the economics of broadcast and business. Those are areas that are not my expertise, but I definitely understand them and appreciate them because they help the technical side of the game. So it is part of our goal and part of the GFA's goal on a long-term basis is to be able to influence these areas. And it's very important that everybody understands. And this is where it gets a bit difficult, because it has to be quite sacrificial, because the game has been played within Grenada and the Premier League for, at a lot of different levels. And some are trying to meet the standards and others are not. And so we need to find that balancing point where everyone understands the benefits from this. such as centralized match play at the Premier League level in the National Stadium. That helps everybody getting used to playing in venues like that. The surfaces are consistent, so the quality goes up. The coaches get to view other games for scouting purposes. The officials get to view other officials within their environment. Streaming, all of the things are there. So that's just one component. The other part is, our technical staff working with Premier League coaches and their technical group to raise their training standards, raise their planning standards, and ultimately affecting the players. Because if everybody's not making their decisions with the players' best interest at the forefront, we are doing ourselves a disservice. And if we can get ourselves in that position, we are going to grow exponentially, and we're going to see, I think, great days for Grenadian football down the road.
And Mike, if I could quickly join in on one last, it's important. And I don't want to water down what Mike just said, but there are two other areas that opportunities lends itself. It lends itself whereby the quality of broadcast that we can do to export, to show our local talent, is opening up with such. It also gives, as I said earlier on, the opportunity for our match officials to be seen and to be assessed. But more importantly, it gives an opportunity for the monetization of the GFA's rights, whereby we can put more money into the sport. I mean, I know I hear people say about things like, well, will you pay the clubs who are in the outer parishes because then the game day, it would be a problem? Yes, we can work around all those. We are not saying you take it or you leave it, but we must, as Coach said, look at the ultimate objective. Are we just there to satisfy a few, or are we there to satisfy the majority, who happens to be the players? Because mind you, I think part of the problem some of our players who have not yet been selected on national team have gotten is because some of the venues they're playing on, the surface is not good, so nobody never really get to see how good they are. I consistently say one of the advantage with the Wagiti tournament is because they are playing on a surface where these guys feel like professionals. They feel good about their passes and their control, and they also know that the fans are watching them. So, as the coach said, we have to look at the bigger picture and not just deal with our own little small egos, and hopefully we will see the benefits of it. More importantly, and lastly, we have not been exporting local talent sufficient. Although it's a responsibility of the player himself and his club, we believe with those opportunities, there may be some persons, you never know who's watching our football. And hence the reason why we have to present a package that is attractive so that everyone will watch it and want to at least be keen on a player or two in our domestic competition.
And adding to that, Cheney, the fact that, as we said, COVID has presented so many opportunities as well as challenges, though. The whole idea of, having live streaming, probably prior to COVID, you may not have thought about it, through that, the whole monetization of the GFA products, all these sort of things. But how important you see that through the GFA and probably through clubs as well, to ensure, as you said, that they try to export their talents, try to expose as well their talents using social media.
It's a challenge our clubs continue to face.
I think you have muted, Cheney. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I've consistently stated to clubs, you need to have an active social media, right, where you will attracting persons to your club. Secondly, you need to have consistently updating profile information on your players, including videos of them in good situations. And last but by no means least, you have to recognize that being the champion of GFA for 20 years, it does nothing for your player if none of your players ever move outside of Grenada to a forum where he can play at a higher level and get some money. So I think we have to try, and I must say, this is the first time I'm mentioning it here, our current Minister for Sport has shown an interest in us changing the mindset of football, whereby it is just an amateur sport to the next level. And I'm hopeful we might be able to do some more to at least project the potential talents that there are at our U15 and our U17, especially because, again, that's another challenge, Mike. And when I say Mike, now I'm meaning Bascom. If I'm hearing about a player for the first time at 19, I am not going to spend too much time trying to get him, except he's exceptionally good. So we need to start working our way up at a younger age. We need to introduce football at a much earlier age, competitive football, U13, U11. And hopefully one or two players at age 14, 15 might be seen and then given the opportunity. I'm not saying we don't have players around 2021 who has that opportunity, but it's hard to sell. That's all I wanted to say.
Mm-hmm. And Cheney, gone are the days where players are given an opportunity even at 16 and 17 at the national level. I mean, you yourself would have had opportunities, even if it means sitting on the bench at a very early age. How we ensure that
I need to qualify. At age 17, I was on the field of playing for Grenada in my first game. 17. I wasn't on the
bench. You know, I'm pulling your legs, you know, Cheney. But on a serious note, how do we ensure that, you know, we start getting youngsters getting that experience at that age, 16, 17, you know, on national teams?
I'll leave my expert, Mike Findlay, to answer that question. I don't want to answer too many technical questions now because he is there.
The president played at 17. He can say whatever he wants if he's been. Maybe I should have picked him last week. Maybe that could have helped it. The reality is this: is that when you look and you assess where we are from a national team's perspective. And if you do your evaluation of what the demands are within CONCACAF and then on to any other international tournament, our group is somewhat long in the tooth. You know, we're getting to a point where we're getting older, but we can't. There's a saying here: you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and that is the fact that they bring experience, they bring educational possibilities for our youth players. So once again, I talked about that dance. It's a balance about making sure that we can transition in an effective way. So for example, when we did have the challenges in round one, and we knew we were going to unfortunately not have certain players, the players that we brought in were all under the age of 22. And two of them were under the age of 18. So that is showing a distinct belief in our youth system, and there's going to be more. This is a very important year for also our U20 program. And in terms of what we're going to be able to do with that program, will slowly but surely be shared because we're, again, balancing how we are assessing and evaluating that group, so we know which group we want to work with. But there's no doubt the injection of youth is absolutely critical, and that's what the primary focus was when we were doing our early assessments. And we were able to find players that are under that age at this moment in time that will hopefully invigorate and motivate other youth players to look for the demands of training. You know, the president mentioned there about the opportunity for these players to move on to the next level. That is the natural evolution of football. If you're interested in playing at the highest level, you have to find the best atmosphere possible, the best competition possible, and move in that direction. And hopefully that'll be driven by a player's interest. And hopefully we can give them the stage at which they can be seen, assessed, and potentially given that opportunity, because it can only benefit the game completely across the island and onwards to international located players.
Cheney, you need to add in terms of complementing what Mike just said in terms of the youth football, the tournaments, the under 19, under 21, even at an earlier age, under 15, youth tournament to be exact.
Well, all I would say is that our strategic plan calls for us to have a lot more competitions for the U19s, U17, U13, and U11. So it's now for us to execute these plans. It also calls for coaching education. Part of what Mike will help us do is to get all of our coaches to work towards what we call a common philosophy, whereby the players at all levels will aspire to play a similar style of football. Let's call it the Grenadian way. And if we can do that, and then again, if we can export one or two talents, I think the sport can change. We saw that transition twice before in the last 20 years, maybe in the 1989 to 91 era. And then we saw it for a short while where when Nixon and Patty and Curry and Kitson Bain, again, a few of them were able to make the transition. So we just have to stick at it, be all on the same page, and then hopefully we will see the results in maybe a 3, 4, 5 years time.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let me head back to Reon. Reon, I know some of the things being discussed now are more technical. Your issue has to do more with officiating, But on the serious side of things, Reon, how do you get yourself, prepare physically and mentally for these, games, whether it's local, matches, or whether it's regional, international tournaments? How challenging it is for Reon to get himself and maintain some level of preparation for even when you are called upon in, at the spur of the moment?
Well, preparation is twofold. You have the physical, and my physical preparation is a routine. It's a part of my life. It's a part of my everyday activity. If I don't train a day, I feel fat or unfit. So,
and as a former athlete, I'm assuming that that is part of you, right?
Yeah. So the physical part, it's a routine. It's a daily routine. In terms of football, I had to adjust and make my training more specific to football. So my physical training would include, mimicking the referee's movement and patterns of movement on the field of play. So I had to adjust my physical training to make it specific to football, more dynamic, And then you have the mental preparation, and that is very important as a referee before you step onto the field, even locally and regionally and internationally. The thing is, you have to have a good sense of football understanding and the players and the teams in which you will officiate it, understanding the players' temperament, understanding the team's pattern of play, the style of play, So all these preparations have to be made before you officiate. So it's really twofold. And then you have the laws of the game, which you have to remain relevant, with understanding the laws and being able to apply the laws. And funny, football is a dynamic game. The modern game is constantly changing, so the laws are always being adjusted and amended. So you have to always keep abreast, with that. So the preparation, it's difficult. It's difficult, especially at the top level. You have to be really prepared because the teams and the players are preparing for the matches, and you basically have to do the same. So you're an athlete, more or less, but operating differently on the field. But you're basically an athlete. All the preparation that the athletes and the professional players do, you have to do as a referee as well.
What it is like, if you can probably explain, let's say you fly into San Salvador to officiate a game. From the moment time you arrive to game time, what it is like, what's the preparation like?
Well, I mean, you prepare before you arrive at the venue. When you get to the venue, it's more or less more mental preparation. For me, I stay in my room and I study the teams on Y Scout. CONCACAF has a platform where we have access to, where we can get information on the teams and their style and patterns of play. And I basically study the team, study the games, and basically prepare my briefing with my team as to how we're going to approach the game, what we expect from the games, and what methods we will use to ensure that we do a good game and an effective job. So for me, it's more mental when I arrive at the venue, getting into the zone. But the physical comes before. When you get to the venue or get to the game, it's more tuning in, mentally to what you're going to execute on the field.
And during this time of COVID, how much it is for you in terms of understanding more medical now than anything else? Obviously, whether or not you can't be wearing a mask running up and down, but some of the precautions that's necessary. What sort of instructions you give to the players, you give to your team in terms of officiating a game?
Well, since we know we've been doing things differently out of the norm to ensure that we're safe. So there are a lot of protocols in place. CONCACAF has a protocol in place that we have to follow in terms of keeping, to keep us safe. And it has really been difficult, following the protocols, the constant wearing of mask, face shield, the social distances. It's not part of a referee life or your referee team. We're brotherhood, and we like the social aspect and connecting, but it has been difficult to do to be physical. So we just had to adapt. So our briefings and so forth is done online and on Zoom and so forth. And even when training, we have to social distance when we do meet physically. So it has been challenging because we have to go out of our usual operation, but that's how it is now. And one of the most important quality of a referee is being able to adapt to a changing environment, because the game is always changing. You have to feel the game and change. So we have to adapt, and that's what we have been doing in terms of dealing with COVID and dealing with the pandemic. It's all about adapting. And the saying is, in science, they say if you don't adapt, you die. So I prefer to live, so we have to adapt.
All right. Let me, and I will get some, I'll read it out and then get some comments from both Cheney and Mike. It's from Lincoln Depredine. By the way, Mike, Lincoln is also based in Canada. He's in Toronto. Competition is one thing. Emphasis should also be placed on players engaging in more rigorous personal training. There's a serious imbalance between competition and training. Lots of competitions are being talked about or held, but that by itself won't improve the football standard. When players get to the national level, Mike's focus should be on system and strategy and not on teaching players the fundamental of the game or worrying about their physical fitness regiment. Cheney and then Mike?
Well, for any player to be at his A+ game has to do a lot of personal training, and you don't wait till the club is training to be in that position. So I'm agreeing with Toro. Apart from that, I don't know. I don't see as before as many persons doing what I call pre-season training. Back in my time, it was a big thing. I don't know how much of our players use the gym now. I did when I was a player. So all in all, these players should be training on their own, apart from when their clubs train, and be ready for these competitions. But we have to balance it. We need to get them a lot of competitive games. So it's not just about training.
And Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I think quite frankly, the comment is both correct, but it's also slightly misguided in terms of what the realities are and the balance between both. When you're talking about development of football for Grenada, certainly in the grassroots area, which obviously I have an interest. It's not my responsibility per se, but anybody who's involved in football must have an interest in the beginning. And so fundamentals are incredibly important. As it relates to senior men's national team players, we're not teaching them fundamentals when they come in. We spend an enormous amount of time off field, quite frankly, strategically, and trying to understand their thought process. So when we implement our game model, which we've done, we have a specific strategy that we want to impose on teams over a period of time. You know, for example, the way we play against El Salvador is much different than the way we play against USVI. But as it relates to the physical conditioning of the players, and the president is correct. I've always said over the years, there's 3 moments that players can be involved in football, and that is within their club system, training, within their club system in a competitive match situation, and personally. And the reality is, if you look at the calendar and the watch on your wrist every day, the vast majority of that time is on your own. So you need to take very seriously your own personal conditioning. And any player that's playing international football at the highest level is not just showing up for training and then going home and watching television or YouTube. They are constantly applying themselves to be in the best possible physical condition. That's from what they're eating to how they're sleeping, to the loads that they're employing. And the reality is they're going to have to take a lot of that on their own. As it relates to our group, when I came in, we had to spend a lot of time in the beginning with the domestically based players due to lack of training opportunities due to COVID, lack of match play opportunities due to COVID, to spend a lot of time on getting them to at least a level physically that they were able going to compete in these matches in the window. And when you looked at our foreign-based players, they were very similar. Some of them have been training. Some of them have not been training because of the COVID scenario and the cancellation of their league structure. And the ones that had been training or had been playing, we had to focus on those to benefit from that condition. And we saw it as we track through our newly instilled medical staff and what we do from a tracking and regeneration point of view. We have a way to go from our physical conditioning.
Mm-hmm. Mike, if I can stay with you, and looking at the tables for the Group A, in which Grenada is placed in, and with 2 remaining matches in the first round that were against Antigua and Barbuda and Montserrat. What is the strategy like for Grenada in terms of going into these remaining matches come another month or 2?
Well, our preparation began basically, the day after the end of the window. We've already done, as all teams would do, we've done a cursory review of all of our group competitors. So we have an idea of, the way they play and, what their tendencies are and what their key players are and what they've been doing in the first 2 games. So preparation has already begun in terms of evaluating that. And now it'll be up to our staff to also start to evaluate our selection process as it relates to delivering on those games. One of these games is away, which is the Antigua game. And then the final game at this moment in time will be played here or in St. George's. But we have to wait and see if that's going to happen, because potentially neither of those games could be played in one venue or in 2 venues. They may play in one venue depending on where we are with the worldwide pandemic and the effects of that. So we always prepare for as many scenarios as possible. As it relates to our position in the group, we're in a good position. We feel very confident about our ability to compete against those two nations, and we'll go game by game, and each game will have its own strategy, and we'll apply it to the best of our ability, and then it's up to the players to deliver.
Mm-hmm. Mr. President, a long shot off. What are the best chances for Grenada as you see? Speaking as Cheney Joseph, a former national player.
Honestly speaking, I believe we can get maximum points if everyone sticks to the game plan, if everyone remain in shape going into those two games, and if the coach has the best available squad to select from. I believe we could get maximum points from both games. However, I will honestly admit to you, I've seen Montserrat play Belize. That was about 2 years ago. And I said to a few persons then, I said, Montserrat is going to be a force to be reckoned with. I also said the same about Suriname about 2 years ago. And today, we are seeing the improvement. It's not solely because they are overseas players playing for both teams, but more of the professional players being involved in a national program makes it easier for the coach to, one, work on a strategy and disseminate information because they are used to those environments. Quickly, as you spoke about, or the question Toro mentioned earlier on, I always use Omar Beckles as an example. I was privileged to see the game when his club, back then he was playing for Shrewsbury, play against Liverpool. And the very next morning, I think it was about 8 o'clock the next morning, him and Aaron Pear, both of them were in the club's gym doing extra work, even after the day after a game against Liverpool. So it's that kind of mindset I would like to see our local players take on. And if everyone sticks to the task, I think Coach Findlay should be smiling and hoping that one bad result for El Salvador gives us a chance to hopefully go on to the next round.
So it's all, gentlemen, are you summarizing basically that's also personal responsibility in terms of training? In terms of physical fitness, there is that level of personal responsibility. As Reon has been saying, he has to do it on his own, basically. And when I say do it on his own, it's his discipline to ensure that he remains fit. You're saying the same thing, Cheney and Mike, that it also boils down to the individual personal responsibility and discipline to ensure that there's some level of match fitness.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reality of the game today at the highest level. And I can share with you what I said to the players. I don't mind saying this. As I said, we're a very transparent group, and there's no secrets in football. And the reality, as I said to the players, it's your choice. It's absolutely your choice. We will create the right environment for you. We're going to create a structure around it. We're going to create programming and content. We're going to create feedback opportunities. We're hopefully going to give you competition opportunities so you can prove yourself. But at the end of the day, the player has to choose whether he wants to be there or not, or at least for an opportunity to be selected. And so they have to go away and decide. And this is why transitioning to a much more focused and professional environment is incredibly important for the future of Grenadian football. And I'm saying that from all levels. With my friend there, Mr. Radix, he's saying exactly the same thing. It's the same with all the officials. All those officials that are living and breathing in Grenada right now are looking at him going, what is he doing that has put him in the top end of CONCACAF officiating? Well, I can tell you, it's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and focus. And that's no different with the players. And it's no different with support staff and everybody that's involved with football. And I've said it on numerous occasions to the players and the staff, we need to raise those standards so we can float all boats.
Mm-hmm. And Mr. Joseph?
Again, those who are ready for it will receive it. Like I always say to people, opportunities comes to those who are ready for it. others talk about, I should have done this, I should have done that. But the truth is, those who are ready for it when it comes will be the ones that will star. And when I say star in this case, it's not easy for the coach to select a first 11. If you are ready to be on the field of play, you do it. I always make reference to my last year playing for Grenada. Maybe I wanted to prove a point to the coach also. Nat Simpson, on that particular match, for some reason, even though I felt I was doing so damn good in the domestic league and everything else, I think we had our own issues. And he had me warming up since about 20 minutes into the game, all into the halftime and all up to 78 minutes of play. The very first ball I touched was on my head. I don't normally score with my head, and I brought us back into an equalization. So I say all of that just to say is, when there were carnival in Grenada, you would see me on the top field training by myself. When there are big shows in the park, you would see me on the road running. You didn't see me in those events because I knew that I had to star in my event, and my event was on the field of play. It's the same approach I'm hoping that our players are taking, whether it's just for your club or for the country.
True, Cheney, the best players in the world train the hardest, from Muhammad Ali to Pele to Michael Jordan and LeBron James. And question, do GFA has a gym that the players can use?
The GFA does not have a gym presently, but the government has a policy through the Stadium Authority that national teams and national players can access the gym at the stadium year-round. Yes, granted, there are players who are in the outer parish, but we'll get there eventually with our new training facilities. But in the interim, there's opportunity for players to use these gyms. And even if they choose to use gyms in their area and they have to meet a financial commitment, if they let us know, I'm certain we can work out something with the owners of these gyms.
And Michael, you can be rest assured that through Jake Rennie, who acts as our physical preparation coach for the national teams and the next national team player, so comes with great experience. We've already set out developing our personal conditioning programs for each of the players that when they complete their COVID-related sequestering, which was part of the Ministry of Health's demands to play this game. Once they've done that, those physical preparation plans for the next 7 weeks, 8 weeks will be instituted within them. So you don't just turn it off when the window is over. You need to ramp it up. But all of those things, and for those listeners out there, and rest assured, you behind the scenes, there is a multitude of planning and programming that is being delivered to these players within their domestic world.
Okay, and talking about training and personal responsibility, let me just play you a couple of seconds of Reon in training, what we refer to as personal responsibility. Okay, so that's Reon. I assume it's at the Lassages playing field, Reon?
Yes, Michael, that's on me. Yeah, that's home. That's at Lassages. Lassages playing field.
And it's something that you engage in almost, as you say, on a daily basis.
Yeah, I'm actually, because I'm a tiered CONCACAF referee, we are in the sports science program, and I am on the sports science program. CONCACAF referee department have that program, and our program is sent, daily, and we have to adhere to it, strictly. So, so yeah, it's basically every day.
Who does the monitoring? Who does the monitoring to ensure that you stick to the program?
Well, we have platforms where we have to submit our training data, every day. We have to upload our data. We have a couple of referees have the Catapult, which is a GPS tracking player or training equipment. You have your Polar device, and all those information and data from that device, those devices have to be uploaded on a daily basis, basically as soon as you complete your training. So it's very well observed, and it's a very good program.
Mm-hmm. Certainly not something that our president probably can stick to, because there's no opportunity to cheat yourself into the program. You need to. It's observed.
The way he was running there, Michael, I'm considering him as actually a wide right player at this moment in time after I saw that video.
Well, actually, coach, when I used to play, I was a right winger, just run up and down.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. I could see it in your gait, like.
But Cheney, and looking at that, is obviously, as you said, it's a challenge for the locals as well, because how many of them are disciplined enough? Reon, though, coming from track and field and coming from running distance, obviously it's something that's already ingrained in him. But how many of your locals will want to keep themselves that sort of rigid physical program, to be exact, to ensure that they maintain a level and maintain that international standard?
I want to believe with the new professional approach to everything that Mike has brought on board, players will recognize that it would be to their advantage to do so. And I want to also believe that we have a few of them who really takes the game serious. But apart from training that hard, one of the biggest problem we have with some players in football, and I say some players in football, not trying to say it's national players, you put out all of that into training, and then what you consume after you finish training could do more damage than good to yourself. So you might be working as hard as you are, as often as you're doing it, but then when you finish training, what you consume, meaning what you put in your body, eat or drink, is also key to maintaining that level. Apart from that, I know the coach has put together a massive list of things that they want us to get. I believe some has already come by, and I believe some of it has to do with digital footprint. So hopefully players would recognize that they can't cheat on the coach just the same.
This is at the end of the day, Michael, this is all about personal decisions, right? And that's why it's so important. I mean, you showed that little video there of Reon, right? But as the video panned, right, as he sprinted, but the video panned, and there was a group to the left there that was about to embark in some sort of it looked like grassroots type of activity. But that visual lesson of what it's taking for him to be considered in the top, as I said, in the top echelon of officiating within CONCACAF and refereeing in Olympic qualifying and potentially World Cups and all those sorts of things, as a messenger, that is so important. The visual component, the learning, the aspirations, and as I say, I use that word emulation. They need to see it, right? So when they see youth players getting recognized at international level, like, for example, the two players that got Josh and Benji the other night who had their debuts. Well, you know what? There was other players in our group who were watching them and watching what they were doing and why they were selected. And as the president said, it's a full package. It's a lifestyle. And if you want to choose the lifestyle, great. If you don't, no problem. We live in a free world. But then don't expect to be part of something if you can't reach that standard or that commitment.
Mm-hmm. And talking about that, I'm glad you raised the whole issue of players getting their international debut. Mike, what it is you're seeing in terms of a talent pool for local players to get themselves and, you know, and especially in this qualifying round, this tournament, to ensure that they lift their standard, ensure that to some of them, as you said, Josh and others who got that, and probably encourage others are encouraged, others are motivated to lift their standard, possibly not just being on the bench, but being on the field as well.
100%. That's why they were there. They're there for. They're not selected for the sake of selection. They're selected for the sake of their potential, their commitment, and their attitude to this process. Every one of those players that was brought in for the second match against USVI were penciled in for potential inclusion, given certain circumstances that occur in a match. As it relates to the talent pool you talk about, I've been very impressed so far with the younger group in terms of their technical abilities and their willingness and their energy and their passion for the game itself. And now it's up to us to organize that environment around them, to get more consistency, and to bring them pieces of the game that maybe they don't know, both from a tactical point of view, from a lifestyle point of view, and then those opportunities will be there. It's also important to note that, as I mentioned earlier in our conversation, that this is a U20 qualifying year. The U20s and U17s in previous years needed to be canceled due to COVID. Very unfortunate, I feel, for the players who have missed that rotation, but it also gave us an opportunity to reset our position. And that's why we're trying to blood certain players in our senior environment so they understand what camp life looks like, what the environment demands, what they need to do personally, because we will begin very soon formulating and molding our plan for our U20 qualifiers in November. You're muted there, Michael. You've muted yourself.
Yeah, Cheney, no doubt it's quite a challenge for the FA. Lots in store. How do you ensure that all that we've been hearing materialize?
Well, like I said before, we're working with a strategic plan. We've budgeted for most of it. We have a professional environment so far with the senior men's program, and Mike will be working also with what the but U17, U20, and U15. He will be working with those coaches also. He's also helping us, as I stated earlier on, with our coaching education. With that being said, I think we also must put some emphasis on getting our U20 and U17 boys the opportunity to play in competitive settings ahead of the actual qualifiers, so that they are in a position of assessment of where they are and what they need to do to move to the next level. I will say to you, if you look at the Grenada national program the last 5 years, you can see that our U15, U17, and U20 have been improving each year in terms of the quality of football being played and the results on the field. What we need is a consistent program. I must say to you, I have no doubt in my mind that Mike is a very good candidate to take us to where we want. But more importantly, it is how much other people buy into his vision to get that program up to where it will be. I will say to you, I'm already a believer in him and a believer in his vision for the development of the football on the field of play. And therefore, I'm hoping that all of us, including my executive, as well as the other clubs and coaches, will be on board, and we all will be satisfied at the end with our results once we all share in the same vision and not see it otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I was trying to see if we can get some more of that there, but I think we have covered quite a bit in terms of, you know, the methodology, I should say. But Cheney, the challenge also is to and to some extent you would have raised it in in earlier segments, I should say, regarding the focus on our youth, the focus on women. You also mentioned the endorsement through the Minister of Sport, well, through the ministry in particular, and that sort of collaboration between the Grenada Football Association and government / the ministry. How do we ensure that support, especially at the school level, which is very important because we do have the secondary and the primary school football tournaments, and more or less as a breeding ground for for your youth tournament. But to ensure, Cheney, that the programs, whatever systems you have in place, that some sort of collaboration is taking place, some sort of correlation is taking place between all stakeholders, and particularly the ministry, well, and I should say the ministries rather, of sports and education, because when it comes to secondary school football, there's this twinning of the ministries, because the Ministry of Education has to give permission for the schools to participate, and the Ministry of Sports does its part by coordinating and organizing it. But how do you ensure that the Grenada Football Association plays a part, be part of the stakeholder in terms of youth football, especially at the school level? You need to unmute your mic, Cheney.
Yeah, we are already in discussions with the Ministry of Education and the Grenada Union of Teachers regarding the revival of primary school football.
Yeah, sorry about that. I should have included the Grenada Union of Teachers as well.
Yeah,
continue.
And it is our hope through those discussions that we can take the primary school football back to the level it used to be when we produced a lot of good players. What we also saw is that there's insufficient football being played and insufficient emphasis being placed on these youth football competitions. Teams play 3 and 4 games and the season is over. So what we want to do is we want to encourage both the Ministry of Education and the GUT for us to look at a new way of doing it using the schools. We are also sending our parish coaches to these schools to start coaching. Most of them have D license and C license. And we are also in discussions with the secondary school principal associations and the bank regarding the secondary school football also. We do not believe there's sufficient games being played at both levels, and therefore we have been using our youth competitions to kind of complement it. But I believe once we can get them to understand the importance of it and the opportunities that it lends to not just playing for national team, maybe scholarships and the rest of it, we believe that it will provide for maybe in the next few years greater quality of footballers in Grenada. I will kind of add and put Mike on the spot, Mike Findlay though. We have just touched into a new market through our association with him. Canada, the Premier League is kind of young. Canada is big on football, especially women's team. No disrespect to the men. But what I am saying is that this is also a new opportunity that we could probably and should consider tapping into, because he has been at the highest level in Canada's soccer over the years. He didn't mention it. He was the coach when the Grenada, the President's 11 played against the Canada under-23 team a few years ago. I think 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago, somewhere there.
That was my first visit to Grenada, and it certainly affected my decisions coming in. But yeah, no, 100% the president speaking regarding the Canadian Premier League. There's a couple of things to take into consideration. One is when we were talking earlier about standards, I mean, the goal of the Canadian Premier League and its establishment was done so the industry of football could grow within the country for Canadians. Canadians for Canadians. That was really what it was regarded, which would give an opportunity for Canadian players to have an opportunity who were not getting an opportunity elsewhere, specifically in the MLS, in terms of professional minutes. Canadian coaches, Canadian officials, Canadian executives, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when you look at the possibilities down the road, depending on where the vision goes in Grenada, it's the same mirrored image that we must bring to our Premier League in Grenada and to our programming. So that in itself is a good piece. The other piece of that is it also is an opportunity for export, where Grenadian players of potential could look at potentially the Canadian Premier League as an option. There are naturalized rules in the league, in the Canadian League. You must have a certain amount of Canadian players, and then you're allowed a certain amount of foreign players. So those players could be considered in that capacity. Yeah, it's another option that was never there before. And I think in the end of the day, part of our plan is to make sure we give these players an opportunity for some export environments that they could go to, and one of them certainly could be the Canadian Premier League. And I will say this, that the president mentioned the game against Grenada, and I was the head coach of the under-23 program at that time, along with being the assistant coach of the senior men's team. But that under-23 program, the last time Canada played at the senior men's level against Bermuda, and prior to that, the U.S. game, there was 8 players off that U23 team that were starting for the men's team, and that men's team is certainly on an upward trajectory as in terms of quality, and it shows how long-term planning and long-term investment in player recruitment, development, and competition experiences that the president refers to, giving these players an opportunity to play in some competitive matches against quality teams to gain that experience. So when they do make their step, they're better prepared. Good mirror images there to look at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, quite impressive indeed, Cheney, and I'm certain that that's the sort of opportunities you're talking about in terms of getting our players, and look at that. Who would have thought that 5 years, 6 years off, that Mike would be providing that level of assistance to Grenada? Who would have thought that? Nice networking, as you will say, Cheney.
Yeah, but Mike even arrived a little too late because we had some delays in the process. But he could have been here as early as September last year. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. But nothing to do with him, by the way. What I want to also mention, though, is that while we do all of these things, we must help our clubs to grow. And when I say help our clubs to grow, we must encourage those clubs to improve on the structure, whereby they themselves can have a structure that the players will feel almost committed to. I say that in the context of our club licensing program, which is going to kick off soon. There are certain minimum requirements that we want to put in place, but we also do not want to use a kind of yardstick, big massa kind of approach to just saying disqualify them. But it's important that the clubs also provide the kind of environment for these players to improve and to grow. And, without calling any name, there are 1 or 2 that I see are already doing it, but we must encourage more of the clubs to do it. I also quickly believe that one of the things that we have to do is we have to get our fans more familiar with our players, and that also help somehow with the confidence of our players when they're playing, whether it's home or abroad. And it's an area that we need to work on also.
Certainly, the fan engagement, Cheney, is as you say, it's critical. the fan engagement, and I know something that you're passionate about in terms of getting, fans, whether it's for the club or whether it's for the national team, it's very important. One comment, David Gray is saying, good job, team GFA. And I'm certain David Gray might agree with me that I don't know if it's because of COVID, but it's probably the first time in a very long time we haven't had, quote unquote, GFA and controversy, Cheney. What has been taking place with the GFA? I mean, there's always the internal wranglings, but the public spat, has that really subsided, Cheney?
I think we're doing a great job trying to focus on positive things. We are making lots of inroads with regards to supporting clubs. Right now all the clubs get a little subsidy, $15,000 each from the GFA as part of, we call that club development, and then there was still a large portion that was given to each of them under the COVID-19 FIFA support. So most of the clubs are now a little bit at ease and can, concentrate on their own internal structure. I will also add, one of the things that we have done, and I have been influential in it happening, is to identify suppliers for these clubs so that they can maximize on their investment. So, for example, I've seen clubs purchasing equipment such as agility ladders and cones and markers and balls and these things. So they are now able to invest more in the club. And I guess they're so focused on that, the small issues no longer come to the surface. Apart from that, too, I think people are just happy with what's happening in football. I don't want to be the one sounding like I'm speaking about myself, but the executive, notwithstanding our challenges, has been able to kind of steer themselves or focus in the right direction. And I think we should just continue along that line.
Okay, well, nice to know that some money has really silenced the I don't want to say the critics, but nice to know that, Cheney. Let's go, Reon. I have some short videos I just want to show because, Mike identified something that was very important, in terms of, the visual, as he says, the visual. But a little more insight into Reon's and his preparations for, physical fitness in particular. And finally, Nice segue to end our program. Some final words from you, gentlemen. First, Reon Radix, obviously, has been a pleasure speaking to you, Reon, as a FIFA referee and Grenada's only FIFA-approved referee. And then we'll have Mike, and then the president will get the opportunity to wrap up. Reon? Oh, I think yeah, Reon, yeah, you're on
yeah,
Reon.
Yeah. Oh well, yeah, Michael, I want to thank you for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure, and I want to commend you and your show. It's been a good program, you know, showing off the sporting personnels and keeping, you know, the diaspora abreast of what is taking place in terms of sports in Grenada. So thank you for the opportunity again, and may you continue the good job.
Okay, and I want to wish you all the best as well. Any game on the horizon? Any match we should look forward to very soon?
You know, there's a code. There's a refereeing code. You know, the match we don't disclose appointments that so soon. So when I get the word as to if I can, I'll let you know. But definitely there are probably some matches on the horizon.
Fair enough, and we understand why, you know, with match fixing and all these other things issues. Yeah, certainly. Thank you very much, Reon. Mike.
Yeah, first of all, after watching that video, I now know why I'm not an official. So that's one thing for sure. No, thank you, Michael. Always a pleasure. Love to talk football. Love to talk Grenadian football, and I think things are progressing, and I think the future is bright at all levels. And it is a team effort and something that we have to work in coordination, and we look forward to continuing it. So thanks very much for having me on, and all the best to you and your listeners.
Okay, and Mr. Joseph, the floor is yours to wrap up. I think we may have I think we may have lost Cheney. I'm looking at I think we may have lost Cheney for a while. Let's see if we may be able to reconnect with him to hear from him what's his final thoughts are. But no doubt it has been a pleasure to have Reon, our FIFA-approved referee, Michael Findlay, our senior men's national coach, and Mike, I thought you did a pretty fair job, very good job, I should say, excellent, if I may add, you know, in terms of bringing perspectives to what we're saying, because you know, has been sometime, you know, troubled times, I would say, for Grenada football and the GFA in particular, and no doubt is a breath of fresh air, I would say, in terms of in terms of your presence. Let's hear from Mr. Joseph. Cheney, I think you were missing for a while. You're here now.
Yes, Mike, I was put backstage, you know.
you are no, not just
I had to remain there.
That is very rare for the president to be in the backstage. I'm going to tell you.
Football terms, it was
good. It was good. There was some entertainment back there. Yeah. On a more serious note, though, first of all, again, I want to end as I started. Congratulations to the Grenada senior men's national team on the recent victory. To you, Coach Mike Findlay, and the staff, and everyone who has been involved in our success, including the medical doctors and physio and all others. Same, I want to say to Reon Radix, and I will use this opportunity, Reon, to suggest to you that those 3 videos I saw Mike did there I think you should get someone professionally edit it, put it together, and let people know who you are and use it as a piece of inspiration. In fact, I believe the chairman of the referees committee might be viewing this, and I would propose to him that we use it for promotional purposes. It tells a lot, and therefore I think we should use it. Last but by no means least, we have lots of competitions starting from today. The women's program is going on now in St. Andrew. We've had the U17 boys, U19 boys, and then we have the U15 coming up. We have the domestic league as well as the conference league to come soon. We have international matches in June, one being here in Grenada against Montserrat. And last but by no means least, Mike Bascom or Mike Tyson, whichever name you prefer. I just want to tell you, you've been doing a great job and continue to do it as long as God gives you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Joseph. When I indicated about when you talk about the backstage in football terms, I would say that you were substituted, right? I thought the phrase being substituted means well, especially for someone who would have spent quite a great deal on the bench. I know I like to take poke for that you had been on the bench, Cheney, but you have done well in terms of your playing days, football, Queen's Park Rangers national team, youth and senior teams. And I'm certain if there was a Windward Islands team, you probably, I want to use the word probably, may have been able to be the water boy. But fair enough. But gentlemen, thank you very much. It has been a pleasure, and I want to wish you all the best. Hope we can probably chat with you, Mike, some of the time again. You know, it has always been a pleasure. I'm talking football, and I thought, as I indicated, you brought a breath of fresh air to the discussion regarding football, development of football. And I'm hoping and wishing you all the best with the national team, with the two remaining matches, I think June 4th and June 8th. June 4th, hopefully, as you indicated, in Antigua, and June 8th at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium, providing that all goes well. And you're correct to say that it's you know, it's sort of you know, sort of what I want to say now is that we're not certain because things can change. You rightly so that things can change. We're seeing from time to time and almost on a weekly basis, you know, different statistics from countries, opening, closing, opening, closing. So you're right. We never know. It can be
very fluid.
Yeah, and the matches could be played, as you said, it could be played in a third country, neutral venue, you know. We don't know what could happen by then. So in terms of preparation, I know it remains the same, and you probably preparing your team in terms of staff and players for all eventualities. Mike?
Absolutely. Yeah. You have to, at this time, and well, you do it anyway, no matter what, because football is it can be funny, it can bring you different challenges. But yes, we're all prepared for whatever the decisions are made moving forward and the realities that we have to play in. So
okay, and I know I said finally, Cheney, but any idea of whether there will be friendly matches for the national team prior to the you know, the next round of matches? I know it's very challenging now in terms of getting to play friendly matches. You know, you see Jamaica played a friendly against the US in Austria or wherever it, you know, it's sort of challenging. But what's in the works? You on mute. I know I said finally,
yeah,
so I want to give you, yeah, no problem.
I know there's always a desire for teams to play us, and anytime the new approach we have is whenever those requests come, I'll forward it to the coach. So I think he would be in the best position to advise whether or not he wished to prior to those games. But I will say to you, yes, there have been a good bit of opponents wanting to play us in recent times, and I'm talking about as recent as this week.
Yes, and just that's all. Just so everybody knows, that's all part of our planning, is to decide what is the best possible preparation. And as quite rightly pointed out, COVID has changed that environment due to travel restrictions, due to quarantining, due to testing. There's a number of pieces that are constantly moving and affect that decision, whether we would want to play a friendly or not. It's going to affect it, but all of those items are part of our preparation processes.
Okay, then. Thank you very much, gentlemen. So remember, it will be June 4th at the Antigua, hosting that game, and then on June 8th, it will be Grenada hosting of Montserrat in St. George's at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium. Hopefully by then, Cheney, if all goes well, possibility of some spectators attending.
I thought you were talking about a recall for me.
No, spectators attending the game, Cheney.
The reality is that we have to keep working with the Ministry of Health, monitor what's happening here also. And so if Grenadians themselves can also remain safe and there's no spike here, I think we will be in a better position to lobby for some attendance at the games.
Okay then. All right. That's fair enough. Thanks very much, gentlemen. All the best, and thank you to our viewers as well. Always a pleasure having you available and having you being part of our discussion. It has been very challenging for the past week in terms of getting programs together. We had some challenges, had some rearranging. And as I indicated, there's a possibility come April 15th that the midweek program may be shifted to a new time. Instead of the 6:30, we are looking at the 8 o'clock, but we should be able to confirm sometime this week, moving to a new time slot. That is to ensure that we get on to more platforms, cable stations in Grenada, Dominica, Antigua, and the Turks and Caicos. Yes, Grenada, Dominica, Antigua, and Turks and Caicos cable stations will be added to our platforms. So I want to thank Cheney, I want to thank Mike, I want to thank also Reon, and all those who have made that program possible. The comments from all the folks, including, as usual, Lincoln Toro Depredine, Alan James, Raphael George, former cricketer himself, yes, and we had the folks, Kwame and others, who provided support and encouragement to Reon Radix. Thank you, John, always being available, and for your support to the program. Don't forget to join us on Thursday, 6:30 in the PM for another hour of TalkSports program. We hope to be talking, hopefully we'll be talking boxing this time. Hopefully we'll be able to confirm at least by Monday. But join us then for another program. And then on Saturday, 1 o'clock is the time to join us for the Saturday sports program. Until then, I want to wish you a pleasant weekend and happy Easter, everyone.